Hello, and welcome back to Talk This Way. I'm your host, Marcia Martin. And in today's episode, we're embarking on a remarkable journey through the landscape of human potential and transformation. Do you ever wonder about the origins of the human potential movement? Or how some of the most influential philosophies have shaped the way we perceive personal growth? We all have the potential to awaken the deeper parts of ourselves, and today we're exploring just how that's possible. We're going to delve into talks on aliveness, some of the original personal development educational firms, including Mind Dynamics, EST, and the Landmark Forum, and some of the influential figures who left an indelible mark on millions of lives. Together, we'll explore the pathways of transformation and personal growth, reflect on unexpected adventures, and even get a glimpse into the future of space tourism. It's a story filled with lessons, achievements, heartwarming connections, and wisdom that might just inspire you to look at life from a fresh perspective. So fasten your seatbelts as we take off into an exciting exploration of human potential, transformation, and a journey filled with opportunities and adventures. Let's dive in.
It is my absolute honor to be presenting to you today somebody who's really just marked my life. She is our figurehead in the magazine. I met Marcia back in 2019 at a women's speaking conference in London. I had never heard of her before, didn't know who she was. She blew the rest of the other speakers away with the quality of her speaking, her charisma, and I realized who she was when she explained that she was one of the co-founders of the human potential movement. And I had a jaw-dropping open moment when I finally got it. I finally was able to manage to piece together how everything that we've been knowing, that we've been in for 5, 10, 15 years as people helpers, how that began. So Marcia's going to tell you a little bit about that, and then she's going to share basically what I think that you will love to hear anyway, about enrollment, and also about her own experience and her longevity. Having got to know her now over the 2 years that she's been with me in the magazine, I am so proud to have her as part of our executive contributors. She is a mighty lady. And she's always really kind of behind the scenes, really, because you know, she's not famous as in like Tony Robbins or what's her name, Marie Forleo or all that, but she has been an influencer, creating that work that allowed all these influencers to step up. So she truly has so much experience, and she is an absolute darling. So I am really honored to welcome Marcia Martin.
Oh my goodness, here I am. I've been hearing about you ladies for quite a while, and so I'm just really honored to be here with all of you. You're so beautiful. Look at you all. Oh my gosh. I think what I'll do is just start with a little bit about me, and then I'd like to find out a little bit about each of you and kind of what you would like to learn from me. I have many things I can teach, I've discovered. So when I was a young girl, I'm 75, and so I'm in the last quarter of my life right now. And this part of my life is really about giving back and taking the wisdom that I have in the world and making sure it's turned over. So when I look at your faces, look at you, you're all such munchkins and such beautiful lights. When I was a young girl, I had an aunt who started working with me, and I was her intern when I was around, I guess, 17 or 18. And she was a clairvoyant healer and an esoteric astrologist. I didn't know what any of that meant then. I just knew I loved her so much. She wasn't really my aunt. She was a distant cousin. Anyway, she had studied great works in metaphysics and knew how to heal, and knew how to heal with her voice, her mind, her touch. And so I was mesmerized by that. And she also was very much into angels and how the universe works and meditation. So from a very young age, I learned to meditate. And I remember my earliest lesson from her was about God. And she really explained it so simply. And at the age of 17, it seemed to be so, take such a profound thing and make it so simple. She said, God never changed. And you could always count on God to be the same. But people held God in different ways. And so it would be important, if I was to be an effective human being, to be able to understand how people held God so that I could really connect with them at a very deep level. And she said it was kind of like speaking different languages. When you're in France, you want to know how to, speak in French. And so she said there were many different religions and ways of viewing God. And so I should study the major world religions, which she had me do with her, and all the major philosophers and the great thinkers, so that I could learn how to understand someone's interpretation of what God was. But that also I should know that God was the same, just a different interpretation. And so if I wanted to be effective communicating with other beings, human beings, I should learn what their interpretations were. So I think it was kind of a profound thing that I didn't take too seriously at the time. It was just something exciting to learn, all these different world religions and how people thought and believed. And it seemed that it was okay to relate to each of the people that I would meet in the rest of my life, whatever interpretation they had inside of that, and have it be okay. And I think that was a really big thing that allowed me to be on the road to where I found myself now. And then when I was only 20 or 21, because of my work with my aunt, because I meditated, and because she always told me that my purpose was to bring and spread love. And that was who I was. She said I was a light worker and that I was here to teach people about love. And when I was a young teenager, it sounded like a great thing. It was like, yay, I'm about love. And it kind of felt that that's what I was about anyway. And it had been that way. My background when I was a young child was kind of scary. My father was an alcoholic and my mother was abused by him in many ways, mostly emotionally, but physically also. And they were divorced, and then they would get back together, and then she would marry somebody else, and then they would get divorced. And so I had stepbrothers and sisters, and I was always the oldest, though. It turned out being the oldest of 5 with my mom and dad, but then when my mother remarried, the oldest of 8. So I was always the mother of the family. My mother had to work, so I had to take care of the kids when she was at work. She worked graveyard shift. And when my dad was gone, there was only me. So by the time I was 10, I was standing on a little bench in front of a stove, because that was, in order to cook dinner, I had to stand on something tall enough to make me tall enough to be able to, put the pans on the stove and cook. And I was taking care of my baby brothers and sisters. And in that day and age, there were no cloth diapers. They were all, no diapers you threw away. There were just cloth diapers. And so there was laundry, and there was all of that. So I grew up very young, and a lot of things happened. I can tell you about those maybe another time. But by the time I was in my 20s, my early 20s, it kind of was that I would say, where should I go today? When I would wake up, what should I do today? When I would wake up. And I would trust that the universe and the angels and my spiritual keepers and God would take me and put me in the right place at the right time, and I would do the right thing to spread love. So in San Francisco is where I was by the time I was 19 or 20, and I was a hippie that was the early 70s. So I used to wear a floppy brown leather hat, and I embroidered my shirt. So I had lots of embroidering flowers and even a dangling spider that I embroidered myself. And I would go to Golden Gate Park and play my guitar, and I would put my hat out in front of me in case anybody wanted to put some quarters in. And I was the kind of person that, if you went by and you didn't take a quarter, I would ask you if you needed some, and I would give you money. So it was just amazing. And it was the time of great music. It was the time of the Vietnam War. It was the time of protests and activists. And I was just full of that space and time. I went to every rock concert you could go to because Bill Graham, who was very famous, he had Fillmore West and Fillmore East, big concert halls. And one of them was in San Francisco, and that's where all the great rock stars came. So in person, I saw, everyone, the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, the Grateful Dead, the Doors, the on and on and on. And it was that place and time. And in that place and time, it was my generation just felt that we could make this work. We could make it happen. We shouldn't be in Vietnam. There should be peace, and there should be love and flowers. So when I heard from a friend that there was this man, the way he said it, says, "Hey, this cat is going to talk about aliveness at the Jack Tar Hotel." Well, if you've ever been to San Francisco on Geary Street and saw the Jack Tar Hotel, you would know that it wasn't a place where you would think of aliveness. It was just a real kind of tattered and torn old hotel. And I said, "I'm for aliveness. Let's go and hear him." And so we went to hear this speech. And when I listened, I realized that what he was talking about, because he said he was going to give this course. And it was a 4-day course. It was called Mind Dynamics. It was one of the very early first human potential courses. There was Jose Silva at the time and Science of Mind. And this was one of those early courses, Mind Dynamics, about personal development and about discovering who you were and, expanding and learning about yourself. But for me, what I realized was that what he was teaching, or what he said he would teach, is what I had learned from my aunt, which was that I was at cause, that I could create, that I was personally powerful, that I had personal power, if I could access and harness the power within, and that was a power within that connected me to the rest of whatever the higher power was in the universe. And that if I were true to that and came from that and understood that I could create magic in the world, and that I could have anything I wanted, and I could manifest things, and that I was responsible. I wasn't a victim, that I could cause my future. I could design my future. And so I really heard in that evening presentation that that's what this new course that he was giving for the first time in his life was going to be. And I'm like, okay, I'm for that. And it was so funny because I don't know if any of you have taken EST or the Landmark Forum, which EST became. And this was the beginning of that. We were Mind Dynamics before we became EST. We were EST before we became Landmark Forum. And just so you all know, I, for 10 years, was senior vice president of EST. I was there from inception until the first 10 years. And I was in charge of communication and registration. And we went from 20 people in one seminar in San Francisco to millions of graduates worldwide in that 10-year period. And so that was a huge time in my life and incredible experience. But when I realized I wanted to do this class, what was really funny is there was no way they could even find me, because me and he wasn't a boyfriend, he was just a friend, but we just had so much fun together, and we used to do all these adventures, and we'd gone to this lecture. And it just happened that the lecture that night was on the same night as the eclipse of the moon. And so we had to leave early. Well, you're not supposed to. If you've ever gone to guest seminars and trainings and things like that, you know you're supposed to stay and you're supposed to enroll and you're supposed to be focused. And so we just split at the break. And those people could never have found us ever again because we refused to even sign in or fill out a registration card, which is what you're supposed to do. And that's how they get a hold of you later and follow you up and ask you if you want to be in the training. So, we came, we looked, I found, we left, we went back to see the eclipse of the moon. But when I woke up in the morning, even though they couldn't have ever found me, there was no way to call me and see if I wanted to be in that training. I just had this feeling I was supposed to be there. So I called the office. And I don't know how much you know of the history of S, but the founder of S is a man by the name of Werner Erhard. And he got to be very, very famous in life. But at that time, he ran a book business where a few people that worked for him, mostly ladies, sold encyclopedias door to door. And then he started this new thing that he was going to be a trainer of this Mind Dynamics franchise in San Francisco. And this would have been his first course to lead that. He had just finished his trainer's training. And so he answered the phone because he was on duty, which is, later you would never get Werner Erhard to answer the phone. But anyway, I said hi and he said hello. And I said, I want to be at the training. And he said, that's great. And I said, well, there's just one problem. He said, what's that? And I said, well, I don't have any money, but I'm supposed to be there. And so he said, well, when do you expect to pay for this? And I said, being the sprite that I was, I'm not sure, just saucy, I guess. I said, well, I'm not sure if I'll ever get the money. And besides that, if something comes up that's more important, I'll probably spend it on that. I just know I'm supposed to be there. And for some reason, he said, okay. And I can go down in history as the first scholarship of NES training, Mind Dynamics forum in the history of it all. And I took that first training in February of 1971, and there were 20 of us in the room. And at the end of the training, it was 4 days long, 2 weekends. I had this amazing experience. I came out of the training that night and I was walking down Geary Street in San Francisco. And it was almost like a balloon came out of my stomach. It was like a cloud or a bubble or something. I don't know. It kind of opened up like this. And inside of it was this vision. And I'd never had anything like this happen. I'm just walking down the street and all of a sudden, in front of me, it was like a dream that kind of was in front of me. And I could see millions of people taking this training. And then it would kind of dissolve. And I would go, well, that was kind of weird. And I thought to myself, well, I guess I'm so excited about that. I'm so excited. I'm seeing visions, but I'm excited about everything. So I'm sure there'll be something else. And it just kept happening. So the next day I called again. And in fact, I didn't even call. I walked down to the office and I walked into the office where I knew the office was. And I said, I'm here to train the children. I don't even know what that means. I don't even know what I was saying, to tell you the truth. I just walked in and said, okay, I'm here to train the children. And Werner looked at me and he said, that's great. He says, be here 8:00 Monday and you'll go to the field. And I said, okay. And I left. And it was bizarre because it all made sense without making sense. And then I came on Monday at 8:00 and I realized going to the field meant I was now selling encyclopedias door to door. And that's how he trained us. And so during the day, I would work with mothers out in the field on, doors, showing them this program where they could teach their children to read. And then in the afternoons, when we came back from the field, I would be on the phone calling people who had come to a guest seminar to find out about the S training or Mind Dynamics at that time. And then in the evening, I would be in a guest seminar, leading a guest seminar. Werner would just say, tell them about your experience and then, enroll them. I say, okay. And then we used to have this apartment where Hanukkah lived, one of the ladies I worked with, who's now Werner's wife. And And she had this little apartment, and that's where we held our graduate seminars. So Werner would have us all come, 20 of us, and sit in a circle in the middle of the living room. And then we would bring guests. And then he would talk to everybody for a period of time. Then the guests would go into the bedroom and they would sit on the bed. And the guest seminar leader, which I became, would sit on the dresser and lead this presentation, the guest seminar. And that's how we would enroll and get enough people to go into the next training. Well, this one night, there was all these people sitting around and there were a lot of guests. And Werner went around and said, "How did you get here?" And one of the guests said, "Oh, Marcia brought me." "Oh, how do you know Marcia?" And I remember this guy said, "Well, I'm a bus driver and she got on my bus and I couldn't believe when she got on my bus. I just wanted to have whatever she had. I don't know what it was, but she was just so happy and had this beautiful smile. And I just needed to know. And so I just came. She said I should come." And then he would go around and then another person would be like, this woman would say, "Well, I met Marcia in the lavatory of a restaurant. And she came in and I had a headache and she said not to worry, she'll fix it. She put her hands on my head and she did some kind of whatever. And the next thing I knew, my headache was gone. And then we had this fabulous talk about life and I just had to have whatever she had. So that's why I'm here." So essentially, that's why I got made the vice president in charge of all of sales and marketing. Is Werner finally just said, "Okay, you're going to be in charge of everything from when somebody has never taken the training and doesn't even know about it to when they're in the room actually taking it." Well, if you look at that spread of what those jobs are in business, what that means is I was in charge of public relations. And I was in charge of sales, and I was in charge of registration, and I was in charge of the creative department, which made all the collateral material. And I was in charge of marketing, and I was in charge of filling events and promotion, and I was in charge of producing events. And so I started by producing events by sitting on a dresser in a bedroom, talking to 2 or 3 people. And by the end of 10 years, I was producing events at the Cow Palace, filling the events with 20,000 people on a monthly basis, Los Angeles Sports Arena with 5,000, New York, Madison Square Garden with 6,500, Honolulu Convention Center with 5,000, Masonic Auditorium with 3,500, and speaking in front of those groups and leading those trainings and training the trainers and training the guest seminar leaders and in all aspects of communication and sales. And so for 10 years, my life was a quest of development, really human development. And that's the foundation, really, of why I do what I do. Started with my aunt, and then I had the fortune of meeting Werner and being trained by him and personally mentored by him. And through the S training, met so many people. So my teachers were people like Buckminster Fuller. I don't know if you've heard of Buckminster Fuller, but I met Bucky because every event that we would do for the graduates, Werner would call me and he'd say, "I met this great person. We got to introduce him to the graduates." And he would say, "Buckminster Fuller, he's this amazing man." And so put on all the events. So then it would be my job to put 10 or 15 special guest seminars or presentations together with 1,000 to 2,500 people in each one and produce it. And then take the speaker, who was a Buckminster Fuller or a Swami Muktananda or a John Denver or on and on and on, around the United States and present them and introduce them and help them in that seminar along with Werner. So it just became, I got to meet so many people and be mentored by so many people and have so many amazing experiences. I'm so grateful. And when it became time really for me to leave, many people came to me and said, "Will you train my team? Will you train my staff? Will you teach us about sales? Will you teach us about enrollment? Will you teach us communication?" So it was just a natural thing for me to go out and do seminars on my own and be a consultant in many corporations. And then the funniest thing happened. So I created this thing in S called the Guest Seminar Leaders Program, GSLP, which became the ISLP, which is the Introductory Seminar Leaders Program. And it's the whole training program of how do you take someone from being a graduate to a place where they're a trainer, and what do they need to know? And Werner always said they have to get through me before he'll teach them to be a trainer. Because what I would teach them would be enrollment, connection, inspiration, the things Werner taught me, because he taught us in the field selling books. He didn't teach us by having us read a book. I mean, we had to go out, and he taught us what it meant to, have not know someone, knock on a strange door, somehow get inside, sit down, talk to the person, influence them that they can make a decision in, a small amount of time without the approval of their husband, sell the books and get to the next door. There's a lot that happens in that. So a lot of people came to me, and this one person that was in my GSLP was an older, rich man, loved his family. I loved his family, his wife, his children. And he always said, I want to work with you. And I would go, okay. So he had so much money, he would go out and he would buy a company. And then he would come back and he would say, Marcia, I bought this company. I want you to run it. You could be the president, and then we can work together. And I go, well, what kind of company is it? And he would say whatever it was, I don't know, manufacturing airplanes or doing this or doing that. And then I would say, no, I don't think so. It's not really up. It's not my cup of tea. Sorry. So then he would come back with another company. And this went on for about a year, until one day he came back and he said, I've got it. He says, I bought another company. I said, well, what is it? He said, it's a hotel on Martha's Vineyard. And he bought this place called the Shiretown Inn, which was the place that Ted Kennedy stayed at during the whole Chappaquiddick mess. It's a very famous hotel. And it had about 100 rooms and a very exclusive dining room that sat 250. And I became the general manager, and I learned this it's really like producing an event, right? You're serving dinners, and you're, hosting people in their bedrooms, and you're running the staff. And I loved it so much. It was kind of in my blood. And then I went on this trip around the world with my boyfriend right after we left S, because when I left S, I was so famous. I know Jenny says nobody knows who I am, and they don't, but in some worlds they actually do. And they call me, is it the Marcia Martin? So I'm a legend in somebody's mind. Anyway, my boyfriend Tony and I went on this amazing global, and we started off we ended up coming back in Honolulu. And there was a girl that I had trained for years, and I loved this girl, Elise Kraft. We just called her Kraft. And she was feisty, she was saucy, she was independent, she was fun. And every time I would do a guest seminar leaders training or teach anything to any of the graduates in Honolulu, I would call Kraft and I would say, let's play. And so we would take the weekend. I'd spend a few extra days there, and we would go on Kauai in a boat. We would take a little rowboat. We'd go out in the ocean, and we would bring our own knife and our own wasabi and our own soy sauce. And then we would fish for tuna. And then we would have our sashimi out on the boat with our Grand Marnier. And then we would take the bottle of Grand Marnier in our little Volkswagen and tool around the island and drink it. And then we would go up to the top of the hill at the center of the mountain where the cows are in the pastures. And when the cow poops in Hawaii and everything, the mushrooms grow out of the poop, and they're hallucinogenic. And so you can go and pick mushrooms off the poop of the cows and get high, and then you can be high while you're having your Grand Marnier and whatever. And this is the kind of stuff I did with Kraft. She was so much fun. So anyway, we come to Honolulu, and I say, I'll call Kraft. Maybe she's in town. We can see each other. And Kraft says, oh, I would love for you to meet my husband, and we can go to dinner. I'll make all the arrangements. And I said, oh, Kraft, honey, you got married. She goes, no, I've always been married. I go, how long have you been married? And she's been married, like, I don't know, it was like by that time 17 or 18 years. And I go, did you ever think of telling me? I mean, this seems like an important aspect of who we would know, what we would know about each other if we're such close friends, but that's how she was. It's just, it didn't come up, right? Well, what also didn't come up is her husband happens to be the general manager of the Hyatt Regency Honolulu. And he runs this gigantic hotel on Waikiki Beach, right? And so where we're having dinner is at his hotel in the penthouse suite with, and then we thought, well, if we're going to do that, might as well invite some friends. So we had, I don't know, 10 or 15 people come. And I remember sitting at dinner and there's Wayne across at the end of the table and me, and we're all just loving this because it's a free meal, it's the general manager, it's whatever. And this waitress comes out and she takes each of our orders and she has no pen or pencil and she has nothing to write on. She just looks at you and she listens. And she goes around this whole huge room without anything to write on. And during this time, as people went on with their orders, people would change their orders because they would hear something else that they wanted. They say, oh, no, can I change it to that? Can I do this? Oh, by the way, I want that. And it was just this, like you knew this was going to be a mess because who could even do this, right? This girl had to forget something. Well, it turns out she only forgot one thing, one of my 3 appetizers, because we were being just obnoxious. We were ordering everything, right? And I was just being a smartass. And I say to Wayne, oh, Wayne, you should hire me. I mean, obviously the competence in your staff is so down that she would make this mistake. Your staff needs to be trained. And he says, that's a great idea. And that was my first account in hospitality and corporations. And that's how I started my career. And since then, I've trained with Capital One, Avion Water, Dannon Yogurt. I mean, and also the hotel industry with Intercontinental Hotels and Lowe's Hotels and W Hotels. And right now I've got for the last 5 years, I've been training and consulting all of the senior executives at Hard Rock hotels all over the world. In fact, on Friday, I go to Budapest and then to London. And I just got back from Mexico. And I've been to their Davos hotels in Madrid and Dublin. And so it's for me a example of flow. And the last thing I'll share with you, and then I'll let you ask me questions and I'll talk about anything that you want me to talk about, because I want this to be valuable for you. The history of Hard Rock Hotels is interesting because Hard Rock Hotels was started in London as a cafe. It's now a company that has casinos, hotels, and cafes. I work with a hotel division. It's got 50,000 employees, and it's a $50 billion company, and it's all over the world. But when it started, it was one restaurant, one cafe in London, and the purpose of it was to bring people together. The 2 founders thought that princes and plumbers should be able to sit down and have a meal together and connect and care about each other and have comfort food, and that it could bring about some kind of peace or joy or, connection. And so that was kind of the foundation. And one of those founders had a spiritual leader, and that spiritual leader was Sai Baba. And Sai Baba at the time was, and is, if you look him up, a very, very influential, famous Indian guru who had millions and millions and millions of followers. And he blessed this venture. And he told Isaac, who was his disciple, and Peter, who was Isaac's partner, he said, I'm blessing this venture, and it's going to be sacred, and it's going to be very successful. And I'm going to give you the mottos that you should hold as the foundation of your new venture, this little cafe. And he gave 50 years ago, this happened. He gave them 4 mottos. Love all, serve all. Take time to be kind. Save the planet. All is one. Those mottos have gone down through the history of Hard Rock and continued into the hotels and into the casinos. And if you go to any Hard Rock cafe, hotel, or casino today, you walk around, you will find those mottos in a painting or on a wall or etched into a statue. Those are the mottos of Hard Rock. Now think about this. So I spend my entire life about all is one. Take time to be kind. Save the planet. Love all, serve all. From the time I'm a munchkin, that's, go out and be a light worker, spread love to everyone. And my whole world is about transformation, how the mind works, how you get in touch with and harness and access your personal power, how you can be a more effective human being, how we're all connected, how we're all here for a purpose. And I happen to kind of get into a sideline of hospitality. If I'm going to teach people all this stuff, then, suddenly I have a guy buy me a hotel and make me the president or the GM. And then, from there, I go to all of these other hotels because I have experience. Well, Intercontinental Hotels found out I had experience. And the CEO hired me 40 years ago to come in and do a training for his number twos from all over the globe. He took the GMs and I took the assistant GMs in Miami, Florida. I did a 5-day public speaking training. In that course were all these assistant GMs. Well, if you understand business, any business, and if you think about applying it to hotels, the number two eventually becomes the number one. So these guys became GMs, right? And when they were GMs, they had power and the budget and they could make decisions. So they called me into their hotels to train their leaders. Well, a lot of them called me in every once in a while, but this one, Carlton Hudson, calls me in, is so excited about who he is as a result of the training. He says, I want you to come in to train my leadership team. And he was the GM of a Intercontinental Hotel called the Willard Hotel at the time in Washington, D.C. So I went there and we trained his team. He won all the awards. So when he left Intercontinental, he went to W. So he says, you got to come and train my team again. So I went in and we trained that team. And then he went to Lowe's and I went in and trained that team. And for 35 years, and he only retired 2 years ago, literally, I trained every leadership team he ever had in any hotel he ever managed. Well, for the 10 years before he retires, he works for Lowe's. Lowe's turns out to be the management hotel that manages the Orlando Hard Rock Hotel. It's branded Hard Rock, but it's managed by Lowe's. I knew no one in Hard Rock. I only knew Lowe's and I knew Carlton. And for 10 years, I trained his leadership staff and we won every award you could win. And he calls me his secret weapon. So one night, I'm deciding where I want to be. This is years later. He's still there and I'm still training the team. And he says, hey, Marsh, he says, I really wish you would come and live in Florida. We miss you here. And I was from Aspen, was deciding on, do I go home to Aspen? Do I go to Europe? Do I go to Toronto? Whatever. He says, let's have dinner and talk about it. He says, oh, we're having a little event at the hotel tonight, so you might as well come. And we call it a wine riff. A wine riff is where you have about 10 different kinds of foods and 10 different wines that go with them. And it's maybe 60 people and 6 tables of 10. So it's kind of mini, but, the wineries get to come in and share their stuff. The chef gets to showcase his food. The hotel makes some money, all of that. So I'm sitting next to Carlton and this cool, fun, amazing gay man who had the best sense of humor, was so sparring and fabulous and incredible that I was just having fun with, whose name was Dale, sitting next to Carlton. And Dale and I are just whipping it up, and it's fun because I know there's no chance he's gay, so it's not dangerous, not going to get involved with anybody. You just have fun, and he spars and he insults and he laughs and I throw it back at him and he loves my energy and I love his energy. And so at the break at the dinner, he says, Marcia, how do you know Carlton? Because we weren't introduced. We were just sitting at the same table, really. And I said, because I'm being a smartass. I said, Carlton and I, we go back 35 years. I've trained every team he's ever had in the hospitality world. I train all of his leadership teams. He calls me his secret weapon. And right at that moment, Carlton turns and sees that Dale and I are talking. And he comes running over and he goes, oh, Dale, I'm so glad that you get to meet Marcia. He says, Marcia has trained all my leadership teams for the last 35 years. And she's trained every leadership team I've ever had. And I call her my secret weapon. And it was like bizarre. You could have written it in the script of a movie. Like he just said the same thing I just said. And so Dale's laughing. I'm laughing. Dale takes out his business card and he hands it to me. He says, well, call me on Monday. Turns out he is the senior vice president of all of Hard Rock Hotels. He runs the whole hotel division internationally. On Monday, he says, you're hired. Let's figure out what I'm going to pay you, because all I needed was to have Carlton's recommendation and then to meet you. So as far as I'm concerned, I've got the best. I can see that. I want to transform the whole hotel industry and start with Hard Rock. And so you're my girl. Now, the reason I'm telling you this is think about it. Like when I look back on my life, everything prepared me for that dinner. Like I'm a GM. I even know the hotel business, right? I actually have clients that are in the hotel business. I'm all about transformation. And which hotel do I pick or picks me? The one that has the mottos, love all, serve all? I mean, is this for real? So that's what I've been doing the last 5 years. And Dale, and this is even more exciting, Dale just left Hard Rock, which it was stunned the industry, because this guy is famous in hotels. And the only reason he would have left was because he has the most extraordinary opportunity. He is now the president of tourism, space tourism for Worldview Space. And Worldview Space, I know, can you believe this? Worldview Space is a new pioneering company that instead of sending a rocket up, and you get to go up for $3 million or something, which only a few people can afford and do, and that's a pretty heavy duty flight, and you're there for 1 minute and you come right back down. Worldview has developed a technology of ballooning, that the balloon takes the pod all the way up to the edge of space above the atmosphere, and you're up there for like hours and hours looking at Earth below. And their whole purpose is to change the perspective of how someone sees Earth and our family and the world, so that we can be closer together. And they need someone to build the hotels at the launch pads. They call them spaceports, not airports or hotels. And so over the next 5 years, he's going to build 7 of these amazing hotels, really luxury hotels. And people who have $50,000 can take this ride, and it lasts for a week and you get all of this stuff, right? And so he just called me again last night, because he said, well, I'm taking you with me. I'm not sure how long it'll take, but just get ready. So last night he says, okay, we had our business meeting, and now they know who you are. So put whatever it is together that you have to tell us, charge us a lot of money. He says, we need you to come in and teach us what you do and how people can be more effective and how they speak and how they connect. And my point for all of that is flow. It's just one of the things that I teach people is, hey, I know you're in conversations that you think are important, but who cares why it is this way? What really matters is, what way is it? Like, what so? People are in conversations with themselves about what should be so, how it ought not to be so, why it was so, but couldn't it also be so? All of these things except for what is so. And the only place you can go any place from is from where you are and what's so. So I teach people to go, what's so, and then what's next, instead of who's to blame for why it isn't the way it should have been, right? It's a conversation that goes nowhere. And so that's kind of me, a little bit more than you probably wanted and a lot longer than I thought I would share with you. So, okay, I'm just going to go over real quick, 30 seconds each. Tell me what you do and kind of what you're interested in. Tracy, what is your little world?
Hello and wow. Thank you for sharing all that. I love to gather and share wisdom and inspiration and to show people what's possible.
Do you have seminars or do you do coaching or?
Coaching and a small intimate coaching group, and it's about getting out of my own way to grow that. That's what I need. That's what I would love to learn, Marcia.
Wonderful. And Debbie, I love your name, Debbie Debonair. That's beautiful.
Thank you, Marcia. That was absolutely amazing. Thank you for sharing that. I am an emotions transformational coach, and I inspire, empower women mainly to take back their control so that they can live life on their own terms through my heart act approach, which marries together the essence and inspiration of the theatrical world with holistic strategies. Because, every day we step out onto our own life stage. We are our own directors. We write our own life script, and so it goes on and on and on. And that's what I do. So I change how people think about their emotions and how they feel those emotions.
Excellent. Thank you. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Lori, what is your work, sweetheart?
Oh, hi. Thank you so much. That was great. Has my mind really thinking here. I am actually a writer, and I write in a whole bunch of different ways. Started out blogging and actually writing for other companies. I do a lot of what I call ghost blogging. So I actually write and control their blogs for them. I kind of transitioned into writing both fiction and nonfiction books. When I've kind of moved and changed positions, decided I wanted to get into romance and women fiction writing. So I've written about 10 books in that arena, and I'm kind of in transition again, just trying to figure out what's next. Again, I like both sides of the writing. I like copywriting. I actually like helping clients figure out what to say, as well as writing books and, helping people in a bunch of different ways that way. Pretty much, I will say I gear myself to women over 40, just because that's where I am. That's what I like to write about. So I just find different ways of doing that.
Excellent. Fantastic. And Julie.
Oh, Marcia. First of all, there's so much. I'm a graduate of a training program that's another iteration past Landmark called Gratitude Trainings, formerly out of Florida. And I've got the bug for transformation and growth forever. My brand name, I'm the retreat goddess. I have events background, and I now curate luxury and transformational retreats for beautiful souls who can travel and also grow and have just exquisite experiences. That is what I'm about. And there's just so much. I feel like I've been destined to know you. That's how I feel. Yeah. So
Thank you so much. That is beautiful. Dawn.
So I am transitioning my women's empowerment coaching into financial empowerment and really assembling visionaries who want to create practical on-the-ground transformation in communities, in projects, and for charities and organizations that want to really make meaningful change in the world today.
Beautiful.
There's a big conversation behind that. Yeah. And thank you so much, Marcia. That was the most incredible introduction to yourself. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Francesca.
Firstly, thank you so much for that, Marcia. I particularly love the sharing those foundations from the mottos from Hard Rock. I'm a voice and sound alchemist. My calling is to support as many people as possible to reconnect with their voice, and that's in as many different forms as that voice comes. So on the basis that the more in touch we are with ourselves, with our own voice, with divine guidance and so forth, the more we listen to others, the more we listen to the planet, to Mother Earth. And yeah, we make those shifts that really need to happen through that communication. I also use my voice, my singing voice in particular, for healing, to channel. I don't really know what happens. I just know that when I sing, when I create sound, something happens. And I also recently started up a podcast, which is called the Reconnected Voice Journey Podcast. So that's my new baby.
Well, that is wonderful. Congratulations on that as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sarah.
Hi, and Marcia, I was just mesmerized by most of what you were saying. I was just like, oh my goodness, you could make a film out of your life. So thank you so much. And yeah, I know hard rock and I love all the mottos and stuff. So yeah, that was a good reminder. So I've written them down. So I am currently transitioning and soon to start my Trinity Code tomorrow. So
how wonderful.
So what I'm currently doing is coaching and training and guiding people. I'm English, but I live in France. So the majority of my clients are French or French speakers, for now, at least. And I help them to really release their past conditioning, all of the things that have been put onto them, either by their family, society, the way they think they should be. I sort of help them remove all the shoulds and the not enoughs or the too muches, and just really embrace who they are and show them and guide them towards their path and say, it's just okay to be as we are. And I've really leaned into the flow recently as well, because I've had a lot of life-changing events. And so what you were saying, I actually have started to ask myself that, what should I do today? Not those exact words, but it's just okay. This is a new day, and just listen, connect to spirit. I call spirit or universe, and see what comes in. And since I've been doing that, I've been on a sort of a curve like that, a curvy path, which is great because it's nice and feminine and flowing. And yeah, that's what I'm about. And it's just really bringing everybody together and saying that it really is, everybody is one, and that we are all part of a whole. And I see so much division, even within people themselves. There's this division, there's this separation. And so what I would really dearly love to bring to as many people as possible is unity and community. And one of the things I love to say is sharing is caring, because for me, the more we share whatever, the more we care for everybody else. So that's
beautiful.
That's
Thank you.
Thank you.
Karen.
Hello, thank you so much. That was just so wonderful to hear your life story. It's amazing. I suppose I have just completed the Trinity Code with Jenny. So what I do today and what I'm going to be doing from now on is going to be very different. So I currently work, my passion, my life is a Pilates teacher. I work with sound and energy healing. And I have a very unique gift of reading bodies. I intuitively understand bodies and can work with them, but also have discovered since working with sound as well as with energy healing how emotional trauma comes through physically in bodies. So I am very much exploring these three healing modalities, bringing them together, tapping into my unique gifts, and really what I'm about is teaching people or not teaching people, guiding people to self-help, to self-heal. And there are many, many ways that I have discovered that I could do this and tap into my gifts. My gift is to hold space, to communicate, connectedness. I know that this is what I thrive on, collaboration. So more and more of that to come.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Margaret.
Hello, Marcia. I didn't join the first part of this session. I apologize. but I will definitely catch up. 30 seconds. Okay, I'm intentional creativity coach since 2 years, using actually a collaborative process between coach and clients, using pen and paper, because I really want to use the right side of the brain to really take people out of their head into their heart and soul. And it is highly time efficient, and it's so impactful that still every time I get goosebumps myself during these sessions, because it's just so beautiful. And I simply love what I do. That's what I've always done. And that's what I actually want to show people, share with people, have them discover that they really can follow their bliss, and that then everything will be all right. Even pain, sorrow, and grief, and all these things. And to free themselves from the conditioning, well, as others also say, but to free themselves from conditioning is really something I'm almost passionate. I'm actually passionate about. So, and just to finish it off, tomorrow, I'm a bit nervous today, because tomorrow I have an event, which is something I've been hoping for, because I've been pitching myself and holding myself back on many other things and events, but this event, and now I'm invited. So I bought a dress today and I really want to make impacts, because, and I thought about Jenny and her, that you need to exude the client you want to attract. So I'm like, I now need to put it into work. Because if this is going to be good, it will be fantastic, because it's a high-end luxury brand that I think is a perfect fit for what I do and what I service. And it's a dream. It could become a dream collaboration. So I'm like, oh, yeah.
Well, first of all, thank you, everyone, all you beautiful ladies, for sharing what your work is. I know Debbie I'm not sure the timing on when 6:00 your time is, because I'm here at noon. But what would you like to know? Or what would you like to learn? Or what would you like me to talk about? I can spend another 15 minutes or so with you and teach you anything or answer any questions that you have. Julie?
With the growing levels of highly conscious people really starting to shift, and everything that is starting to emerge, I'm curious, with you being there from the very beginning, what would you say are some of the best or the most necessary ways of being that we can access to contribute all of ourselves to bringing this forth?
Okay, very good. Nice question. Well, first of all, I see people in terms of there's many parts of who we are. And I look at it as simply as I can, which is there's the face that we all put out in front, which is the face we pretend to be. It's our pretense. And we all have a pretense. We act as if we are something that many times we're not. And why do we act or pretend? Because we're afraid we're something else. So the second face is who you're afraid that you are. And we act as if we pretend we're confident because we're afraid we're not enough. We act as if we have it all together because we're afraid we don't know what the hell we're doing and somebody's going to find out soon. We act as if we're certain, and we have self-esteem when we're not confident at all, and we have many doubts. So that face of who I'm afraid that I am sits behind the pretense. And the reason that the pretense is in place is because of that face of who we are as a fear. There's a face behind who you are as a fear, which is who you really are. It's the essence of yourself, but you have to connect with it to come from it. And until you're connected with it, you won't experience yourself as such. What's really interesting to me is the face of who you really are looks exactly like who you pretend to be. But there's a big difference in pretending and experiencing it. You can pretend you're confident. That's totally different than when you really are confident. And so the only way to get access to that person of who you really are, which is really are perfect and able and totally transformed and loving and loved and full and wholesome and complete and enough, all of those things, is to drop the pretense. But when you drop the pretense, you get in touch with who you're afraid that you are. And when you're in touch with who you're afraid that you are, it feels like that's who you are. When it feels like you're failing, well, you're not really failing. Nobody can fail, but it sure feels like you're failing. And that's a very uncomfortable, terrible, horrific feeling to have for human beings. My gift, and what I would say is the thing that needs to be done for all of us, is to be able to relate to someone at the point of who they really are and pull that forward. So when I watch people communicate with each other, I see them see the deficiencies. I see them judge the parts that aren't working. So essentially they're relating past the pretense maybe, but right into, oh, that person isn't enough. We're judging, that person's missing this, missing that, not enough of this, too much of that. Well, that's the person's afraid they are. And when you relate to that person, you interact, you have that collaboration, interaction with that person, that's what comes forth. If you can get behind the pretense and past the person they're afraid that they are and really see who they really are and relate with that person, eventually that person will come forth to relate with you too. And I think the answer to your question is what we can do is to practice seeing that person in others and to practice seeing that person in ourselves when we have self-talk or interaction with ourselves. Instead of relating with our fears and having that debate, go a little further and really kind of be willing to meet the qualities that you are instead of the imperfections. And I think that will have its own momentum to cause some growth. Does that help with that question? Good. All right, wonderful. I do want to say to all of you that it's so funny because, Margaret, I'll get to you next. I see your hands up, sweetheart. When you talk about transformation, I want you to think about me as a young woman in the work that you all do, because I do a bit of what everyone said here and have my whole life. And when I was in front of a group, I would have to tell the purpose of the training. And the purpose of the training at that time was to transform the way that you experience so that the situations that are, stopping you, getting in your way, clear up just in the process of life itself. And every time I would say to transform, about 30 hands would go up in the room. And those people would say, what does transformation mean? What are you talking about when you say transform? What is transform? Now, I know it's almost hard to even understand this because of the world you live in. You live in a world where it's such a catchphrase and it's part of everything that you do. And each one of you said it in one way or another, if not literally in your introductions, as if, well, of course there's transformation. And of course we're all transforming. And of course I know what it means. But I lived in a time when nobody knew. And even I didn't. I used to go to Werner and say, somebody asked me what transform means, and I didn't quite know what to say. So can you tell me? Like, what does it mean? What are we doing here? And Werner was so funny. He says, oh, it's kind of like when you go from a caterpillar to a butterfly. Now, I took that when I was 20, and I ran with it for years. And I would say in front of thousands of people, oh, it's like when you go from a caterpillar to a butterfly. And everybody would do the same thing I did. When I heard it from Werner, they would hear it from me and they would say, oh. Now, only a few years ago did I actually understand what happens to a caterpillar during the process of transformation before butterfly happens. And it ain't that pretty. And it ain't that, oh, you just go from a caterpillar to a butterfly. What happens is the caterpillar actually melts and into a butter. It constitutes itself. It takes itself out of the form that it's in into a butter, into the beginnings of whatever it came from, and reconstitutes itself into a new species. It's not that a caterpillar's eyes is a butterfly's eyes and a caterpillar's legs is a butterfly's wings. No, that was the end of the caterpillar. There was no caterpillar. It went back to zero, nothing, into a non-form, and the form itself reconstituted into and created a new species. That's what transformation is. And I think our work really in the world is to allow people to see their caterpillars and to help them move their caterpillars into butterflies. What are the old beliefs that don't work? You know, a caterpillar contributes nothing. A lot of people don't know this, but all a caterpillar does is eat. Doesn't give back, doesn't help the universe. There's no products. We don't have a caterpillar quilt. I'm sorry. So here is something that contributes nothing. All it does is eat, would explode had not had the process of nature do that reconstitution and make a new species process. The butterfly comes out and the whole planet cannot live with the exception of having the butterfly and the honeybee. It's that essential. So when you take a butterfly, when you take a caterpillar of your own, a way you are behaving, a way you are thinking, a way you are speaking, a way you are acting, and transform it into a butterfly, you're disabling an old belief or an old action or an old thought process. You're not just changing it, you're really letting it go, you're destroying it, you're eliminating it. You're making it extinct and creating a new way of being, a new way of thinking, a new way of acting. And that's the work that I think that we are in the world. So second kind of answer to your very big question. Thank you so much. Yay. Margaret, you have your hand up, sweetheart.
A very short question, because now it's concrete for tomorrow, right? May I ask you something about that? Because I present myself as intentional creativity coach. I think that the word coach is very charged. It's so life coach, and it's like every divorced woman became a coach. I'm not divorced, and I think I've been coaching my whole life. I mean, I'm not interested in the people's stories, actually, that really, but I'm interested in their potential. And that's why I sometimes feel like, how can I catch what I do? And how can I say it in such a way that somebody thinks like, oh, wow, that's the one I need to have. You understand? Because it's lazy maybe, but I don't want to explain. And I know I have to, but I just want to get going. And this whole process in between, and I know it has been my work. I've been a marketeer. I know all the things that has to be and there's also beauty in that. But to be precise and concise, and this I'm struggling with it, even though it has been even my work. But now it's so close to my heart that I noticed in myself that I'm like for an elevator pitch, I already wrote 20 and they're all different. And, but that's what I'm looking for. Like, oh, what can I say that somebody, because I would love to start a small pod coaching or a small group as soon as possible. I know I can do it, but I'm holding myself back. I don't call, I don't reach out to form a network. And now tomorrow I'm at an event and I think like, oh, okay, I need to do something good.
Okay. You haven't formulated a question. I can respond to what you're sharing, but do you have a question? I want to focus on the area you're interested in, or I can just respond to what you've shared.
No, sorry. If you can respond to what I said. Yes.
Right, very good. And I want all of you to notice that I share in a particular way for a purpose. If you're being with me, you're experiencing something, And if you watch me, you'll learn something. So the experience itself is probably worth more than all the information I would give you about a subject. I have enrolled you all. I want you to notice that. You came in here wherever you were, and now you're in love. You trust, you're willing, you're enrolled, you want to know more, you're up to the table, you're asking questions. Okay, well, what happened? I just taught you everything there is to know about enrollment. Mostly what happened is I am transparent and I actually share from my heart.
Yeah, okay.
And it's not that I share all of the things that are going on. It's not like I'm sharing my drama. It's not that. It's a place I exist in and how I am being. Now, what Margaret is asking about, or what I'm responding to, if I listen to language, she talks about two things a lot. And one of them is that she knows. And one of them is, what does she need to do? So I can learn that her attention is on what she needs to do, and my attention is on who I need to be.
Yeah, okay.
If my attention is on who I need to be, I'm in the space, and if I'm in present time, that's a whole other big thing. Just getting yourself in this moment instead of coming from your head or being in the future or the past or your upsets or whatever. So you have to be centered in order to be present. Centeredness is being open, present, and connected. And those all take practice and time. So you learn two different ways. You learn through the mind by understanding things, and you also learn through the body. The body has its own learning system, and the body only learns by doing something and practice. So when I'm sharing this with you, you're understanding it. Your mind is learning. For you to actually learn in your body, you've got to go out and do what I tell you to do. So what I'm telling you to do is consider, who are you being? Now you know that's important because I told you so and your mind understands, but there needs to be some practice in your life where you stop and you look and you're aware of, who am I being? What was I being then? Where was I coming from? That's the piece that, Margaret, you're talking about. You're looking in the wrong place. Well, it's not wrong or right. You're looking at a place that's not going to work as effectively if you look in a different place. And so don't worry about what you need to do. Worry about, who are you needing to be to accomplish what you want to accomplish. Being is in the invisible world. And the invisible world is where commitment lives, and where possibility lives, and where declaration lives. It's where your visions are. It's where your feelings are. And we're all committed. It's not that we're not committed. It's only, what are we committed to? And you can tell what you're committed to if you look to see what you're being. And you can also hear what you're committed to if you can listen to your language. You see, language exists in two pieces. One is what's said. The other is what's not said. That has to be so for you to say what you said. In other words, language is content. The assumption behind your value, your assumption, that thing is the bowl. It's the space that the content lives in.
Yeah.
If I take you back to Christopher Columbus, and he's going off to the Americas to, discover, I promise you, nobody at that time ran down the dock and said, "Bon voyage, have a great trip, here's some champagne." Why couldn't they say that? Well, because at that time, the belief, the assumption was the earth was flat, it had a big drop off, there's a monster at the end of the drop off, and you go to the end, you fall off, and you get eaten. So I can't say in language, if I'm coming from that assumption, have a great time. Now we have a different assumption. Now I can take a bottle of champagne down to the dock and say, bon voyage, have a great trip. I'll see you on the other side, you see? So when Margaret says, what does she need to do? I can hear the assumption because I listen in a particular way. And her assumption is she has to do something first in order to produce something. And that's not how it works. So there's 3 universes you live in. There's what you're being, what you're doing, and what you have. And most people look at you have to have something first, then do something in order to be something. So that's how Margaret's language is telling me she's unconsciously thinking. She's going to go to the event, so she has to have an event to go to. And at the event, she's trying to figure out what she needs to do in order to be effective or get a client or have whatever it is that she's wanting to be. And creation works exactly the opposite. It's not have, do, be, it's be, do, have. Be always comes first. Be always comes first. You have to have the dream before you can have the reality of the dream. Plato has a discourse on this. What comes first, the chair or the idea of the chair? The idea itself in anything that is going to be real has to have been created first. So that's what I would say to you. A couple things. That first, Margaret, is figure out who are you being and what do you want to be in that event? And if you're being a coach, if you're being a transformer, if you're being an effective human being, whatever it is you want to be, and you go and be that there, people are going to gravitate towards you and want your services. So there's nothing for you to do except do what's appropriate once you're coming from that place. The second thing I would say to you is there's a lot in what you're saying, and I listen to what people say. People listen mostly to what they think they should have said, what they think they did say, or they don't even listen to anything and answer something that wasn't said at all. But I actually listen. And what you kept saying over and over is, I know this, and I know that, and I know something else. So I would practice getting in a space of not knowing. It's a more productive space to be in. Say to yourself, what is it I don't know? Not say to yourself or others, here's what I do know. And I think what will happen is you'll have better results and you'll feel better too, I'm sure of it. Does that help a bit?
Yes, thank you very much. Because the reason why and it only started this afternoon at 4:00 that I had all these thoughts coming in my brain, in my mind, like, oh, and this and oh, and I should do that. And whereas I am not like this, but because there's some pressure because I'm so excited actually about this. I would like so much to make the connections that can catapult also my services forward. I mean, I'm there already with one foot in, so I know I can lay off the pressure, but it's now just because I want it so much that I start to put conditioning around it, whereas okay, for the things that I do not know, but I should just be. I understand what you mean.
Okay, good. I'm going to make one response, then I'm going to kind of close this out. So I'm not here to coach, but I'm going to do a little coaching. Is that okay with you? Okay. Listen to this recording again. Listen to what you just said after I said what I just said. There's 3 parts for you to listen to. You listen to first what you said, then you listen to what I said, then you listen to what you said after. What you just said after was all the things you know. The reason I did this and the reason I had that is I understand why I'm doing that and I understand what I know. And well, this is why I did it. And I have to tell all of you, all of those times that you say the reason I did something is not the reason you did it. Reasons exist at the same time as your actions, and they are not the motivator of your actions. And you keep saying again, I know what I have to do. And I know that when I do know and when I understand and when I know, so I just want you just re-listen to that. And the reason I'm asking you to re-listen to it, and this is how I'd like to close, because I know, I'm sure Jenny, knowing Jenny, she has lots she wants to do with you, and I've taken up all of her time, even though she was gracious to let me have this time. Awareness is your key. Awareness is the foundation of peak performance. All you have to do is to be more aware, and the rest will take care of itself. Awareness is the opening. Now, really expand your awareness. Most people look at the world as if it's out there in front of me. No, look at it as if your eyeballs are in the back and you're looking through you out to the world. So you're not just aware of what's happening in front of you, you're aware of what happens in front of you that triggers what happens inside of you. What thought went by? What reason did you think up? What excuse did you give yourself? What triggered in your body? What emotion came up? What behavior came after that? What language did you share? Start noticing what triggers you and throws you off center, and then what you think and do as the result of that trigger. If you're aware of that enough over time, what will happen is you'll start to be aware of patterns. When you start getting patterns, then we've got some big movement possible. Okay, ladies, I could go on for 3 years. Jenny knows that's true. And I love listening to myself as well. So hallelujah, Lord. But I am going to close this out and just say thank you very much and how much I enjoy you all. And I hope you invite me back again. And Jenny, thank you for the honor of bringing me into your peeps. It's just been wonderful.
Thanks for listening to Talk This Way. If you enjoyed the episode, follow the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And for access to training, courses, and other ways to learn from Marcia, visit marciamartin.com. That's MARCIA.